Hello friends, welcome back. It's me, Chad, your friendly neighborhood distiller with another episode. This time we're going to be talking about gin. Gin, like many spirits, started off as a medicinal tonic that people little by little developed a taste for and just started drinking for fun. The name gin, well, gin itself, technically you could consider the first flavored vodka. The name gin comes from the Dutch word Genever, I've heard it pronounced many different ways, which also comes from the Latin for, I believe it's juniperus, could be juniperus. I never know how to pronounce things because I learned most of my words from books. But anyway, comes from juniper, which is its primary flavoring component. Juniper berries are, in fact, not berries, they're actually little tiny pine cones. Which leads us to today's word of the day, etymology. Not to be confused with entomology, which is also a very interesting pastime, possibly more so. But etymology is the study of the origin of words. And I just gave you a rundown of where gin came from, so we got that covered. The original old school gins or genevers, blah! The original The original old school gins or genevers were a lot more subtle in flavor than what you see today, and over time gin has changed. The original ones, genevers, mostly taste like unaged whiskey with just a little hint of juniper in there. And our friends over at Echo started their distillery up with because they were fascinated with Genever. But over time, those flavors changed. You eventually had something called Old Tom Gin, which was a little sweeter, a little more full on the flavor profile as far as botanicals go, but not quite what it is today with what most people think of, which was the next style, which is London Dry, which are the ones that pretty much just taste like Christmas trees. All juniper, very subtle on everything else. If you think like Bombay, Beefeater, Gordon's, all those classic traditional London Dry gins. And then now with all the craft distillers, we're finally seeing that start to change again to where the focus is on some of the other botanicals. And the fun thing with gin is it's wide open to interpretation. By law, as long as it's predominantly juniper flavored, you can pretty much do whatever else you want with it. So naturally, me being me, I like to kind of think outside the box and introduce different flavor profiles. So it's kind of surprising that it's taken this long for me to come up with my second gin. But my first gin we're going to talk about, Clawfoot. This gin took me a year to get the recipe figured out. I started with an apple brandy base because I wanted a nod to the old school Genever and Old Tom style gins. I wanted more flavor than what you'd get from neutral grain spirit, which is what most London Dry gins, or all London Dry gins, are made from. Most gins also, in addition to juniper, will see some form of citrus and then usually coriander or orris root or angelica. And those just kind of help balance out the flavors. And when I was working on this, I had a flavor profile in mind, but I wasn't getting what I wanted. And frankly, the coriander and then the citrus just were not hitting the marks I wanted. So I eventually kicked them out entirely. And ended up, after a year of tinkering around, settled on 11 different botanicals. Juniper, of course, being the primary one. Then also bay leaf, caraway, mace, which is the outer shell of nutmeg, dill seed, tulsi or holy basil. It's another really cool flavor that I was introduced to. I got real close towards the end and I felt like something was missing. I couldn't figure out what it was that I wanted, and just on a whim one day I threw some rosemary into it, and that brought everything together and became the primary flavor that people pick up on. The other cool thing that I do with Clawfoot, as a nod to Genever, which incorporated the old school like malt whiskey flavor profile, is even though it's apple brandy for the base, a portion of it is malt whiskey that I infuse with spicebush, which is a regional botanical. The flavor of the berries are very similar to allspice. It's been used for thousands of years around here. It grows just in Appalachia. But I actually use the wood itself to infuse because it has a lot of those same flavor components. and then I'll blend that in later. Just gives a nice little spice note to it, balances things out. The name Clawfoot is a nod to like a clawfoot tub, bathtub gin. During Prohibition, you had bathtub gin, which people would take any alcohol they could get their hands on, mix it up in the largest mixing vessel they had in their house, generally a tub, and stir in juniper oil and other flavor extracts just to make what today is called a compounded gin, where you're just mixing the flavors in after instead of distilling it. But I thought it was interesting. I had the name for that, and I was surprised with how trendy like Prohibition era cocktails and stuff were at the time, that no one had used that name for a gin. And so we went with that, and working with Mike, our label guy, I wanted a claw-footed critter in the clawfoot tub. So we went back and forth a bit. I was like, I want like a dog, but like he came up with like a very different looking dog in the tub. I was like, no, make it snoutier, like a fox. Just put a fox in there. Put a martini in his hand. But really like that label. Probably my favorite of our labels. Right after I came up with that, I knew eventually I would do another gin, but just kept getting pushed back. And finally, this past year, decided it was time to really focus on that and come out with another one. So I came out with Cloudbreak, which I mentioned briefly in the last one, which is it's going to be taking the place of Writer's Block. Again, gin being wide open to interpretation. I wanted to go the other route. The other one's very botanical. This one I wanted to be very citrusy and like tiki inspired. So the big botanicals in there after juniper are orange peel, almond, and toasted coconut. And so it's only got 4 botanicals total, and really happy with the way this one came out. It is grain based as opposed to the apple brandy based one, but it's not neutral grain. It's just pot still grain, so it still has that nice mouthfeel you'd get from a traditional like malt wine spirit. The neat thing with etymology is studying how words and language changes over time. That's kind of a philosophy that I approach with everything I do. My spirits, like I'm always taking or making nods to tradition and then morphing it into my own thing. And it's interesting to see how spirits have evolved and changed over time, especially with something like gin that if you haven't had a traditional Genever, it's hardly recognizable if you tell somebody it's gin. It works much more like whiskey. But everything, really in life, the best things are all, they come from our influences and our cultures and the way we blend things together. And that's really what I'm trying to show people with the distillery and my art and everything. It's just, we are more than the sum of our parts, I guess. Anyway, that's all for now. This coming week, 2 days actually, I'm getting 1,000 gallons of apple brandy in so I can make more base spirit for both Clawfoot, and it's also the base spirit for my absinthe. And we're going to lay down at least a barrel, if not more, of apple brandy and make apple brandy part of our regular lineup. So it's obviously going to be at least a year out before we release any of that. It's going to spend some time in a barrel, but excited for that. Got a couple other things in the works. For today's little moment of inspiration, one of my favorite documentaries. I've watched it a lot of times, and it also has a companion book that I reference a lot in addition to other books when I'm working on art and feel kind of stuck. But Beautiful Losers follows a lot of people from like the skate scene, and just ties right into that whole just DIY ethic that I'm always talking about, and how much skateboarding has shaped the way I look at the world, and just about being an artist, and how one of the things that makes people, what drives people to be an artist is that we just never lost our sense of adventure and play, and we're always just trying to explore and experience new things. So it's on YouTube. Check that out. Pay for it if you can, but last I checked, there were some places to stream it for free. And for things to check out, going live very soon. I will drop a link, but the Ohio Distillers Guild, which I'm a member of, we are launching an Ohio distillery trail. So a lot of you have come through on the Columbus Distillery Trail, but we're launching an all Ohio one. There'll be new rewards for each step along the way, so you don't have to do it all in one go. I think it's going to be split up into like regions, but that'll be cool. I think it's going to culminate with like a year-end party or something that you'll be invited to if you check off enough stops. But check out the links, sign up for that. I think it goes live May 22nd. I'll check and post a date after I finish up here. But that's it for now. See you next time.